call. The QR code will get you to our tracker, allow you to track your time. This gets you up there, 3 hours, get you working 4:30 to 7:30 in the morning, allow you to work a full day and spend time with family, doing things in the community, and nurture your relationships with your friends. A bunch of commitments. Go to 430psycho.com, get all that. Hey guys, how's it going?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was two things that yesterday were interesting to me. One is I have a friend who quit drinking for the New Year's, and he's already broken that resolution, and we're 8 days in. And then shortly after hearing that news, I was listening to a motivational speaker that's going to be on a call, or and there's such a cadence to motivational speaking, right? Like you can Google, there's a TED Talk where a guy does a motivational presentation and he doesn't anything, but the cadence of his delivery is so recognizable that you feel motivated, right? And
then he takes his glasses off just to make it seem more important. He says that, right? Is that the same guy?
Yeah.
Because there's not even lenses in here.
It's a pretty great TED Talk, and I was thinking, just made me think about like how, like, I don't let myself get motivated by motivational speakers anymore because of that TED Talk. Because a lot of times there's at the end of it, to get more information, you got to sign up and you got to subscribe, or you got to buy this, or you buy this little thing that adds to another little thing. In my experience, most of these motivational speakers are selling something at the end, and they get you really excited, right? And I was just a buddy who's already a week into his resolution. There's been many books written about the going from motivation to implementation, right? And it's such an interesting thing, the difference between you're excited, you're all excited, you're going to do this thing, you're thinking you're going to do this, versus actually holding yourself accountable to do it. What do you think the biggest problem for you guys are to go from like motivation to implementation?
Oh, I don't. I mean, I think people lack action. That person took action, but I don't know. Sometimes when things revolve around alcohol and things like that, sometimes maybe people maybe they have additional dependencies, right? Like you can justify anything. So who knows? Everybody's thing's a little bit different.
No, I'm talking about like you. For me, it's pain. Like I need to be in a a little bit more pain than pain making the change, which people have written about a lot too. That's
struggle.
My thing. My change is usually too. Because I haven't done something, I'm feeling. Another friend has become more successful because they're doing the thing I'm not doing, or there's a problem that's getting overwhelming that I have to, I've just been broken up with, or I've, all these different things. It's usually pain related for me, and that's one of the things I'm trying to break out at. Not waiting for the pain, just doing it. Like this whole challenge now is like about just doing it. So for me, it's breaking out of that pain cycle that creates me to make change.
Ron, I think for me, it comes down to your heart's desire, what's in your heart. So I think you have to take time to reflect and, with a journal and write down what you really and truly want. And depending on how great your heart's desire is, should dictate you taking action. Yes, a lot of people, if something hurts so bad, like for instance, when's Rob, what are you eventually going to do? So like follow your passion, follow your calling. When it hurts so bad, then what you're going to do, you're finally going to do it, or when you're really committed to your heart's desire. So it's a commitment to your heart's desire. That's what it is for me.
Well, like Rob, you were talking about writing a book for like 3, 4, for however many years until your buddies gave you such a hard time that But was it the hard time, or what was it that finally made you do what you'd been talking about doing for years?
So it's an interesting point. So it was on my heart for a long time, and then when they called me out on it, and said, "Rob, you've been saying you're going to write a book for 4 years, and you haven't done it yet. You're either lying or you're full of shit." Is what they said, and so I guess there was the pain of being called a liar that held me accountable. So that's to your point about the pain piece. I didn't like being called a liar, but it was truly on my heart. And I guess it's getting over the what's the word, the imposter syndrome thing too, right?
Right.
I'm not good. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Who's going to want to read my stuff? That was a big piece for me. So yeah, I mean,
but it's interesting because it's all like imaginary roadblocks, right? I got this friend, Jason Hewlett, that's imposter syndrome, because it's just like in your head. It's not like something holding you back. Jason Hewlett, Google him or pull him up on YouTube. He's an amazing speaker, but he wrote a book called The Promise. And he's the guy who shifted me from making goals to making promises, because I don't break promises. So that real simple, like, make a promise. If you're somebody that doesn't break promises, you're more likely to keep that promise. So there's little tricks to, I was curious if everybody's got little tricks. Most of my big successes have come out of a painful, something happened that created a ton of pain, that created the motivation that made me push through the perceived pain of, this is going to be too difficult, or should I start my own business? It might be too painful. I can't do it. Then you do it and you're like, hey, that wasn't so bad.
Well, they say that the fear of loss, I mean, a lot of people make decisions, like even in the sales psychology of sales, the fear of loss is greater than the opportunity of gain, right? So if you say, hey, if you were to do this, your life would be better, the opportunity that's in front of you is all yours. That's one side of it. But if somebody's like, if you don't change, you're going to die, right? Like, then so that loss factor. But there was U.S. News and World Report did a story many years ago on that, and the title was "Change or Die," and it was still like 90% of people, if they were told like, "Hey, if you don't quit smoking, you're gonna die," they're like, "Okay, I'll quit smoking," and they may do it for a couple of days, but then they picked up their own habit, and then they did die. There's just, change is hard for anybody. So,
well, a lot of people won't even stop smoking, knowing they're going to die, and then they die, and they're in the hospital dying, smoking.
Yeah. So I think all the biggest changes that I've ever made is just when I was sick and tired of being exactly where I was at. I was just tired of, like, say I put on weight. I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I've had many instances of extreme, in my life, where I go from this to this, and then when I'm doing it, I'm all in, right? And if I'm extreme in the other direction, I'm all in. So I choose to be extreme in other directions, right? If I'm getting up early and people are like, why? It's like, well, because it beats staying up until the sun comes up, right? Because that's the other extreme, maybe, right? So.
Yeah.
You made me think of something. I've heard Brian Buffini say it on stage before, but it's when you have that Popeye moment. Like, you remember Popeye, the Sailor Man, the cartoon?
Yeah.
When he got so pissed off and he finally got tired of Pluto kicking his rear end, he says, that's all I can stand. I can't stand it no more. And so when you have that Popeye moment, and maybe that's when you change. It's all I can stand. I can't stand it no more.
Well, that was more eloquently said than me. It was clear.
It made me think. When I first got into real estate, I also went to flight school, and I was scared to death of flying, but I wanted people to think I was sharp like a pilot, and I thought I was going to die, and it was so hilarious. I was okay. I was okay with the risk of dying to have that, like, because I just ran into a buddy of mine and who got his pilot license. I was so impressed. I was like, that's how I want people to think of me. I don't want them to think of a guy they've seen out at bars for many years, but the guy that was sharp like a pilot. And but which was an interesting thing, because Ron, it just, you're talking about dying, like change or die, because then that accountability level for me got to do my checklist properly or you die. and for some people, like not the people dying smoking a cigarette, but like somebody like me, when you put death into the equation, I automatically become an A student, from a C student to an A student, because you don't want to make those mistakes. So death is a good, factor for a lot of us to make change, certainly.
Somebody told me about a book yesterday, and I put it on my list. It's called Checklist Manifesto. Have you guys heard of it?
No.
It was actually written from the aviation industry and having to do with a series of, plane crashes. And I think that they said, so they went, and the concept was Checklist Manifesto. What are the 20% of things that take care of the 80%? And that's how you framework your checklist. It's supposed to be a relatively simple read, but this is how they implemented all of their standard operating procedures for their business for each one of their departments. So sales, what are the 6 things you have to do, like when you're working with a buyer? What do you have to do when you're this? Or what do you have to do in the marketing department? And that was the basis of how their new integrator, in the EOS model that they hired, went through each department to make sure that each procedure was documented. Anyways, we were talking about aviation and checklist and process, and so I just sharing that with you.
That concept has made its way into operating rooms, where you would have this surgeon that had been doing this for 25 years, doing this 100-step surgery, and he would miss a step or two, because he wasn't using a checklist, and the nurse, everybody was intimidated by the surgeon, so it would just go on. And then because of those kind of mistakes, they implemented checklisting, where you could have like the executive nurse in a surgery checklisting everything, and everybody accepted that. So regardless of how long you've been doing it, you're never going to miss a step because somebody's checklisting everything. So I read a lot of accident reports in aviation. So there's other things too on top of checklisting, communication protocols, what's being communicated, because there's been a lot of accidents, and they've changed. So it's a really interesting place where there's intense accountability around high volume of death if you make a mistake. So on top of process and workflow, communication, there's probably some really good books beyond book that have come out. But even just reading some of the big, most recent accidents and how they happened and how it changed aviation, it's pretty interesting. Yeah. So you guys can all go out and get your pilot licenses and
Right.
Yeah, that, or we can just go get shirts with ampoulettes and
anyways, we've hit our time. It's for me, this is great. I enjoy so much getting together with you guys in the morning, and there are other people that aren't getting on. If you are seeing this, you can get on and join us on this call. We can have up to 10 people on this special call. But for me to change out of my change, accountability is usually attached to pain, and there's no pain with this. So I'm evolving as a person.
There you go. You're getting chiseled.
That's right. Well, see you guys tomorrow.
all right.
Great day.